100,000 years ago, a human being lost someone they loved, and they felt exactly what you feel. The same heaviness in the chest, the same inability to sleep, the same not knowing what to do with your hands. Grief is not a modern problem, and the way ancient humans dealt with it was so powerful that modern psychologists are now studying it to fix what therapy cannot. Think about the last time you lost someone, or the last time you watched someone else go through it. The world tells you there are stages of grief. It tells you to see a therapist. It tells you time heals everything. But nobody tells you what to actually do in those first hours, those first days, when the pain is so sharp you cannot think straight. Ancient humans had no therapists, no grief counselors, no medication. And yet, they developed rituals so instinctive and so effective that scientists now believe we abandoned them at exactly the wrong time. Here is the part they do not teach you. The oldest evidence of grief we have ever found is 100,000 years old. And it was not a prayer. It was not a text. It was a body in a cave in Israel, buried with intention. Not just left, buried, with their knees pulled to their chest in the fetal position, with objects placed carefully beside them, a boar jaw in one hand, red ochre pigment painted on the body. This was not practical. This was emotional. These ancient humans took the time to prepare a body, to place meaningful objects with someone they had lost, to mark the moment with color and intention. 100,000 years ago, before any religion we know of existed, before any formal belief system had been written down, humans were already doing something that can only be described as a funeral. Which means grief rituals did not come from religion. Religion came from grief rituals. The need to mark loss is older than every belief system on Earth. But the most powerful discovery came from a cave in Iraq, Shanidar Cave. In the 1950s, archaeologist Ralph Solecki was excavating a Neanderthal burial site. Neanderthals, the species we were taught, were primitive, brutal animals with no emotional depth. And inside one of the graves, he found something that changed everything. Pollen, flower pollen, covering the entire burial, from at least 8 different species of flowers: grape hyacinths, groundsels, ephedra, yarrow, all placed deliberately around the body. Someone gathered flowers, walked to that cave, and laid them around someone they had lost 60,000 years ago. Now, some researchers have debated whether the pollen could have arrived naturally through animal activity. But subsequent analysis confirmed that the concentration and variety of pollen was deliberate. These were not random flowers blown in by wind. They were chosen. And the flowers chosen were not random either. Yarrow and ephedra are both medicinal plants, plants used to ease pain and fever, which means whoever laid those flowers did not just want to honor the dead. They wanted to comfort them, even after death. Even a Neanderthal could not accept that the person they loved was simply gone. But here is the discovery that stops everyone. In 1955, in Russia, researchers found a burial site called Sunghir, 30,000 years old. Inside were 2 children buried together, a boy of around 12 and a girl of around 10. And what was buried with them is unlike anything found anywhere else in the ancient world. 4,792 ivory beads, hand-carved, every single one. Archaeologists estimated it would have taken one person working full-time 45 minutes per bead to produce them. That is over 4,000 hours of work, buried with 2 children. On top of that, mammoth ivory spears were placed alongside the bodies, a fox tooth pendant, red ochre covering everything. These children were buried with more care and more labor than almost any adult burial ever found. Think about what that means. A community that was barely surviving, that spent every single day hunting for food and staying alive, stopped everything, and spent the equivalent of years of combined human labor to honor two children they had lost. They did not move on quickly. They did not hide grief. They gave everything they had to it. And then they kept going. Here is what modern psychology is now realizing. For most of human history, grief was a community event, not a private one. When someone died, the entire group stopped. They gathered together. They performed rituals together. They cried together. They talked about the person who was gone. They kept that person's name alive in the group's memory. Grief was shared so completely that no single person had to carry it alone. Then something changed. Modern society privatized grief. We started telling people to process it quietly, to see a therapist alone in a room, to not burden others with their pain, to move on within a socially acceptable time frame. And researchers now believe this is making grief worse, not better. Dr. George Bonanno from Columbia University has spent decades studying grief. He found that the single biggest predictor of how well someone recovers from loss is not therapy. It is the strength of their social connections, their community, which is exactly what ancient humans had built grief into from the very beginning. They knew something we forgot: you cannot grieve alone. It was never designed to be done alone. 100,000 years ago, a human sat beside someone they loved and felt something break inside them, and they did not hide it. They painted the body red. They placed flowers around it. They carved 4,000 beads by hand for a child. They gathered everyone together and refused to let the moment pass quietly. They understood something that took us 100,000 years to forget. Grief is not a problem to be solved. It is proof that something mattered, and the only way through it is together. The next time you feel it, remember that what you are feeling is the oldest human experience on Earth. You are not broken. You are ancient, and you were never meant to carry it alone. If you think that is strange, wait until you hear how ancient humans survived deadly cold before clothes or fire existed. What they did seems impossible today, yet somehow it kept them alive for thousands of years. The truth completely changes the way we think about our ancestors. Watch this next.